And we're back on the podcast, and today we're going to talk about another episode on health. But what in particular, we're going to talk about mental health. Recently, we celebrated, I think, Mental Health Awareness Month. So, what do you think about mental health when you hear the words mental health? What comes to your mind?
I think we have this wrong notion that when we talk about mental health, it's somebody who has an unhealthy kind of thinking.
Like somebody who is crazy, like a psycho.
Yeah, but I believe that that's wrong because mental health, we could have healthy mental attitude.
That's right. It's a very sensitive topic, I think. But if you were to ask me, when I hear the words mental health, I think about people who have depression, anxiety, fears, among other things.
Insecurities, you
Yeah.
know. Uh, but what do you think is the real meaning of mental health? I mean, do you know what you're going through also when you talk about mental health? If I ask you, Sam, what is your present mental health?
Well, first of all, it's I think similar to like taking care of your physical health. We don't just take care of our bodies, but we have to also pay attention to our thoughts, our mental state, because I think it's equally important in the way that the quality of our life, the quality of our life depends on also our mental health.
Right. You know, there are many people who only think about their nutrition and their physical uh, well being, but you know that there's something bothering them, and so their behavior towards others are affected.
Yeah,
For example, if I am a fearful woman, I'm always anxious, I'm always uncertain about the future, my relationship with others is going to be affected. Have you been, did you ever go through some mental problems, Samantha?
I remember it was about probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was a naturally shy girl growing up, but that never really got into something complicated. It's just that I thought this is my personality. But I'm not talking about shyness here. Okay. 5 years ago, I went through something called social anxiety disorder.
Social anxiety
So the
disorder,
acronym is ironic.
SAD,
Yeah.
sad. Social anxiety disorder.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about it.
So the reason why there's a name for it is because I had to visit like a qualified counselor in the Philippines, and this counselor gave a name for it. Apparently, there's something as social anxiety disorder. So, what is social anxiety disorder? It's fear of interacting with people, but it's not a general like people in general, because there are days where I'm fine and I can interact with people, but there are days where I just feel like hiding. And when I force myself to talk to somebody, maybe because it's necessary, I feel my heart palpitating. My eyes begin to water like I'm about to cry. And I get so nervous, so anxious. Like I just want to disappear at that moment. And all these thoughts are just going through my mind like, oh, and especially when the symptoms, the manifestations happen, I think even more like, oh no, this person is noticing I'm about to cry. Oh, this person is noticing I'm shaking, I'm trembling inside. And even more, I get scared.
So you consider that as mental issue?
I think so because there's no specific trigger. Like it's not like okay, I'm scared of this kinds of people or that kinds of people. It happens. It's an irrational fear.
Okay, let's put a distinguish uh, between the SAD and somebody who is an introvert.
Yeah.
Samantha is not an introvert.
I thought I was an introvert.
Yes. And, a lot of us probably uh, may experience this, that there are times when we are afraid to face people. And it could be that it could be a slight SAD,
A
or
mild
a mild
SAD.
one, or in the case of Samantha, it really increased and progressed to really being afraid, even to face her brother and her sister-in-law.
Yeah, it got that bad,
Yes, that's right.
and it really got in the way of my life because at that time I was already a minister. I was already serving,
Okay.
and I had to face people. Part of what I do is talk to people.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where when I would have an appointment with somebody, probably for lunch or they'd invite me to a party, I would say yes because maybe that day I was feeling good. And then the next day or the days that are they're nearing the event, I would cancel just like that because I was scared.
Yes. So, uh, SAD and concerns like depression, what else? Fear. Do they all fall on the same category as a mental issue?
I think so. I
Okay.
think so. I think, well, um, do you think that there are specific medications that should be taken? Of course, no. There's something biological about it. It could be for some, you know.
Some have the hormonal imbalance. Some people say they call it as something that they inherited from their parents or grandparents.
Yeah.
But in the case of Samantha, she was told that there is no cure for it.
Well, in fairness to that counselor, that counselor told me advice by the book.
Yes.
By the way, it's like a legit counseling session because I had to pay like 1,000 pesos per session.
But she only went for one session.
Not one, I think maybe 3 times, I guess. Yeah, I reached three times. The good thing about that is I was able to open up.
Yes, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And also for the counselor to describe what Samantha went through is something that I also discovered. Oh, there is such a thing as a social anxiety disorder. So now that we know her situation, it is good to know how we solve it. It's the same way as depression and things that make you fearful. You need to discuss it with somebody who has a listening heart and who would probably help you journey through something that will set you free from being stuck in that situation.
Right.
Because I know Samantha, she's no longer suffering from SAD because see, she's everywhere. She's so public. She meets with people, a group of people, one on one, and I don't see any more of that SAD where her eyes would water or she would hyperventilate or she
Yeah.
would cancel the meeting. I've seen her cancel meetings many, many times.
Many times, and actually it got in the way of my relationship with my family because they would get so frustrated. It's like, why would Sam always exclude herself from family gatherings,
Yes, yeah.
important events? And it's so hard to explain to people who don't understand.
Yeah, right.
It can be very frustrating, and it can lead you to even more depression because you feel like you're different. You feel like nobody really understands. Some people may think, that's just fear, just get over it. But let's be very careful to give advice because
Yes.
to say that, just get over it,
Yeah.
it's very insensitive.
And people who are going through depression and fear and anxiety, because there are such thing as a panic attack, anxiety attack. Let's try not to minimize what they are going through and say,
Yeah.
get over it. Just pray. But they need somebody to journey with them, walk with them as they go to that place where they will just be set free, just like my daughter here. What did you do?
Well, so after those 3 sessions, I I I I had a thought in my mind. I cannot accept this.
Good.
I cannot accept this because one of the things that was told to me and what I understood about social anxiety disorder is it's something that I have to just live with.
Yeah, I think that's in the book,
It's part of the
that there is
yeah.
no cure for that.
One of my remedies, one of the things I would do is when I would have a panic attack, I figured it out. I would exclude myself from a gathering or from a conversation. I would go to the toilet, to the bathroom, look in the mirror, and just breathe. I just did that on my own to calm myself. And I found out from the counselor that that's one of the ways to actually cope. And this counselor said, that's very good. You know, you're learning to cope,
Yes.
and you learn to live with it. You learn to live with it.
And get over it.
Not get over it. Like you just gotta deal with it every time it happens,
Oh,
but
I
never
see.
really get over it. Basically, you're not gonna be cured from it, but you just get better at
Okay.
dealing with it.
So,
So
what do you say about people who go through depression and panic attack?
it's a very real thing. In fact, when I think about it right now, somehow I'm brought back to those emotions. It's like it's very real. I feel it right here at the moment. Not that I'm scared now, but going back, it's like that's a real issue. And I like what you said about make sure you open up to somebody who's willing to listen to you and who understands. So aside from the counselor, my mom was there with me, and so
Yes.
when that SAD thing was discovered, I would be very comfortable to tell her, "Mom, at this moment I'm having a panic attack."
Yes. And you know what? People would normally know what I would do. I will lead my daughter to prayer.
Yeah.
And people who open up to me about getting scared or going through depression, of course, I would listen and listen really, really with an open heart and be with them as they journey through this depression and fear. But then there's always hope because, can I just quote in the Bible?
Yeah, of course.
Psalm 103 says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who healed all
My
who no,
diseases.
who healed all our diseases." And what does it mean by all?
Yeah.
I mean, I have this faith that what God says, it will happen. And so it may not be an instant cure, but keep praying and saying, because it's actually saying to yourself, there is hope. You cannot just succumb to the SAD, the social anxiety disorder. You cannot just succumb to, yes, I will just be a depressive person for the rest of my life. I will just be a person who's so fearful. You can just do what Samantha has been doing, to step aside, take a deep breath, and say, Lord, help me. I can get over this. Because when you talk to yourself, you're telling your brain, you're telling yourself, I'm not going to succumb to this. I'm going to get over this. The hurdle will help you, along with the people who are walking beside you, journeying with you, that you just don't rely on them as a crutch. You also need to have that resolve. I don't want this. I reject this. So pray and say, Lord,
And and I know that you've been praying. You've been praying for me. That's the reason why that something clicked in my mind. I'm not gonna receive this. I'm not going to accept that this is something that I have to live with for the rest of my life. And at that moment, in that dark moment of my life, that season of my life, I wasn't conscious about where God was. I just saw everything in just the physical realm. But our faith is very important to us. We believe in Jesus Christ, in a higher being that's in control of all these things, that if we just surrender and go to him, he will help us through it. And at that moment, I realized there's another dimension I'm failing to look at. And that's the spiritual aspect of it.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about anything spooky or mystical, but it's simply praying. It's simply talking to God and saying, God, I'm at the end of my rope. I need your help. And at that moment, something changed.
Yes. You know, you I keep saying this. Do not accept it. Do not receive it as something that is hereditary or I am made this way. Just like Samantha, ask for people's help. And of course, there is a supreme being who would help us. His name is Jesus. And you cry for help and say, Lord, I need you. When you say, I need you, she said something happens. Yes, she does it daily. I know that because she goes through a lot, so many problems, not just the SAD. She also gets disheartened about some situations. But we say, I need your help, Lord. And she comes to me, she goes to her friends who are trustworthy and discuss the matters with them.
Yeah. So aside from accountability, aside
Yes.
from our faith,
Yeah.
one big part of my recovery from SAD is having a positive mindset. But I cannot draw a positive mindset from nothing. I cannot just conjure it and say, okay, from now on, I'm going to have a positive mindset. Especially when you're in that dark place, it's so hard. So I had to draw it out from some place. And I drew it out from the Word of God. I drew it out from the Bible,
Okay.
the Christian Bible. There are so many promises, verses in the Bible that pertain to fear, anxiety. You would find throughout the Bible God saying, do not be afraid, do not fear, do not be anxious about anything,
Do not worry.
do not worry. And so when I found it hard to have a positive mind, I had to look into a place where there was hope, and that was the Bible. So what I did was open up the Bible every day. I made a resolve because I wanted to change my mental state.
Yeah.
So I turned to verses such as in 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And at first, when I would recite that in the morning and in the evening, or whenever I would have a panic attack, it wouldn't really be real to me. But I made the resolve that I will keep saying it, just like maybe some of you have a morning mantra, or I don't know what you call it, like affirmations. I treated it as such until I actually it became real to me.
Yeah. Yes. Feed your mind with positive things. The Bible has a buffet of all promises of God that is good for us. We cannot feed ourselves with looking at negative news, surrounding yourself with people who are also negative.
Yeah.
So, what do you feed yourself? Everything is just negative and fearful and full of anxiety, hopelessness, depression. The Word of God has so many promises. And it says there, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So with that, Samantha, I think we can just tell our friends here that there is hope in your situation.
Yeah.
Call for help, ask for help, and of course, pray.
I like this. I like this quote I saw online. It's okay to have Jesus and a counselor too.
That's right.
It's okay. It's all right. Because you need, God uses counselors, Christian counselors. God uses mentors to really speak life into us. If you're not accountable to anyone yet, look for somebody, pray about somebody who you can really trust with anything. I have probably two or three people in my life only that who know me inside out, and they won't judge me
Yes,
for what I tell them.
that's important. go to people who will not judge you and
Minimize your problem.
minimize your problem and also gossip about you. Make sure that you go to a safe place.
Yeah. That's awesome. And the good part about this story is as I kept reciting those scripture verses from the Bible, I don't even know which day I got delivered from it. There's no particular day. Why? Because I got caught up in focusing on the positives that I no longer remember when the negative stopped.
That's good. That's
That's
good
good.
news.
Yeah, I'm out
Yes.
of it. There's hope. If it happened to me, it can happen to you.
Yes.
All right. Well, it's the end of our podcast. We'll see you in the next one.
God
Bye.
bless.